Hello, math champions. Today we are going to arrange fractions in order when the numerators and denominators are different. And we are going to do this in 3 easy steps. So the first step, I'm going to lay out all these steps, and then we are going to work an example to show how this is done. So the first step is to find the LCM and I'm going to write out the steps of the denominators. All right, so find the LCM of the denominators. That's step 1. And we'll see how it's done in a short while. Step 2, we are going to find the equivalent of each fraction. And this is the same as making equivalent fractions. So we are going to make equivalent fractions. So we are going to find the equivalent of each fraction with the LCM as the denominator. I'll fix this here so we can see it clearly. So our step 2 is find the equivalent of each fraction with the LCM as the denominator. And you'll see how that is done shortly when we follow these steps. And by following these steps, eventually you would not need to remember these steps. Once you get practice and you get enough practice, you'll be able to do this on your own and you'll remember these steps. The third step is when all the denominators are the same, because by finding the equivalent of the fractions in step 2 will lead us to the point where our denominators now will be the new LCM, which will be the same. All right, so when all the denominators are the same, you can arrange the fractions in order. When all the denominators are the same, you can arrange the fractions in order, because the denominator will tell us how many parts in the whole, and the numerator will tell us how many parts are in that whole. All right, so by looking at that number, we'll be able to tell which number is the largest and which number is the smallest. So the example that I'm going to work, I'm just making this a bit smaller, seeing that we know our steps. We have our steps right here that we are going to follow. And we are going to work an example on the right here. All right. So I'm using the pen tool now so that I can get my fractions clearly. So the example will be as a sum. It can be arrange the fractions in ascending order. So we may have something like that in a question. Before I go to my pen tool, I'm just going to put that in as a question. So as a question, you might have arrange in ascending order. And the fractions that we are going to arrange in ascending order, I'm going to put them right here. Let's say we have 2/3, 3/5, and 1/5. Sorry, 1/15. All right. So ascending order means, look at this word ascending order. Ascending order means we are arranging from smallest to biggest. So we want to remember that, smallest to biggest. All right. So what we are going to do, we are looking at our steps, which is telling us step 1, we see we have different numerators, we have different denominators. First step is to find the LCM of the denominators. So I'm going to find the LCM on the side right here. I'm going to find the LCM of the denominator. I'm just going to get another margin here. So I'm going to put a little line here. All right. So to find the LCM of our denominators, we are going to list the multiples. So we have 3, which is our first denominator. We have 5. And then we have 15. So I'm going to list the first 4 multiples of each one of these. Or if I need to list less, depends on, I'm going to look at my multiples and decide if I need to list more or need to list less. So the multiples of 3 will be 3, 6, 9, 12. That's the first 4. 5 will be 5, 10, 15. 15 will be the first multiple of 15. I'll just list the first 2 here because we may not need to go further. And as you can see, I'm already seeing 15 here. And if you know your tables well, you will know that the next multiple for 3 here will also be 15. Right? So I don't need to go any further here because I'm seeing a common multiple. Right? I came across my first common multiple for each one of these 3 numbers, or our 3 denominators. So I'm going to circle that here. right? I have 15 here, 15 here, and 15 here. So therefore my LCM is 15. All right. So we just completed step 1. Okay, so you're taking it in stages. So we have our LCM of 15. And our second step, if we go back to our notes, we are going to find the equivalent of each fraction with the LCM as the denominator. So we know our LCM. So you need to find the answer for the first step so that you can move on to step 2. So I know my LCM is now 15. So what I'm going to do with each one of these fractions, I'm going to put these fractions down and find the equivalent of each of them. So I have 2/3 will be equal to something over 15, right? So what this step is saying is that we have to use the equivalent. To find the equivalent, we will use the LCM as the denominator. All right. So we know when we need to find, we have a missing number here, and we need to make an equivalent fraction. It means that whatever you do to your numerator, right, to find the equivalent on this side, whatever you do to your denominator, you will do it to the numerator. So we're going to ask ourselves, 3, how can we get from 3 to 15? So 15 is larger than 3. So we can tell ourselves, you know what, we need to multiply. So 3 multiplied by what will give me 15? And if I know my tables, I know that 5 times 3 or 3 times 5 is 15. So to form the equivalent fraction, whatever I do to my denominator, I will do to my numerator. So I have 2 at the top, so I will also multiply 2 by 5. And 5 times 2 is 10. So 2/3 is equal to 10/15. So I'm going to do this for each of my fractions that I'm given at the top, and then we'll see what we will do in step 3. So we are still on step 2. We are not finished yet. So I'm going back now, and I'm doing my second fraction, which is 3/5. So 3/5 will be equal to something. I'm just gonna three-fifths will be equal to something over 15. Right? So we are using the 15 as the denominator in each one of these. So I'm going to ask myself the same question. 5, how do I get from 5 to 15? 5 multiplied by something will give me 15. 5 times 3 is 15. And whatever I do to my denominator, I'm doing it to my numerator. So 3 times 3, or 3 multiplied by 3, would give me 9. So I got 9/15 there. My last fraction is 1/15. So 1/15 is equal to something over 15. So what do I do to 15 to get to 15? So I need to multiply by 1. So 15 times 1 is 15. All right? So whatever I do to my denominator, I'm going to do it to my numerator. All right? So we would have learned previously that when we are forming equivalent fractions, we form them in two ways. We can either multiply or we can divide. Okay, so if we are going from a small number to a larger number, obviously it's more, so you're going to multiply. So 1 times 1 back to our equivalent fraction is 1. So we just form equivalent fractions for each of the fractions given here to arrange in ascending order. Okay, so our third step now, we have already done the second step. We have all the numerators are now the same. So when all our denominators are the same, which is 15. All right, so when all our denominators are the same, so we have our denominators are the same, you can arrange the fractions in order, because now we can look at our numerator and decide which fraction is the smallest and which one is the biggest. So we are arranging, they're telling us here that we need to arrange in ascending order, right? An ascending order is from smallest to biggest, right? Smallest to biggest. I'm just putting this here. So it's a little reminder. All right, smallest to biggest. So take a look at the fractions that we form, the equivalent fractions, and we are looking at the fractions on the right. So it's obviously, when you look at our numerators, the smaller the numerator would be the smaller the fraction. Because obviously 1 out of 15 parts is smaller than 9 out of 15 parts or 10 out of 15 parts. So therefore, the smallest fraction is 1/15. So I can say then that this fraction would be first if I have to arrange it, right? So the next fraction that would come after 1/15 would be the 9/15, because 9 is less than 10. So 10 is therefore the greatest or the biggest fraction. So this would be second, and here would be third, 10/15. All right, and fix my R. So it's easy as that. When you have your denominators that are the same, you look at your numerators and you look to see which one is the smallest, which one is the biggest, and then you arrange in the order that they are asking, because they may ask you to arrange in descending order as well, and descending order will be from the biggest to the smallest. So it's the opposite of ascending. So therefore, the answer, when you have to put the answer, all right, the answer would be equal to, now when we are listing the answer, we don't list the equivalent fraction that was formed. We have to list the original fractions given, because those were the fractions here. These fractions were the ones that were asked to be arranged, the 2/3, the 3/5, and the 1/15. Although when we arrange this one and we form an equivalent fraction, we got 1/15 as the equivalent as well here. All right, but we are still looking at the original fractions when we are listing. So the first fraction in order, in ascending order, smallest to biggest, we have them listed here. And it's good to put first, second, and third when you have worked out your equivalent fractions. So you can, at a glance, you can see it. And when you have to list your answer, it's going to be easier for you to put it down. And you're not going to get confused. So you have 1/15 would be the first fraction. You just fix that comma a little better. The second fraction will be 3/5. Remember, I said you are listing your original fractions given, because those were the fractions you were asked to arrange in order. 1/15, 3/5, and then 2/3. Okay, so that's our answer. Again, let's do recap. When you are arranging fractions in order, when the numerators and denominators are different, these are the steps that you would follow. Find the LCM of the denominators. Step 2, find the equivalent of each fraction with the LCM as the denominator. And step 3, when all the denominators are the same, you can arrange the fractions in order. So I hope this video was helpful in allowing you to be able to solve your questions. And as I said, you may also be asked to arrange fractions in descending order, right? It's just that you have to be careful because it's the opposite of ascending order. So you're going to keep that in mind. Ascending is from smallest to biggest, and descending is from biggest to smallest. So remember, you can do this, my math champions. You've got this. You've got this, my math champions.